Hi, I'm Olivia, and I'm 15 years old. Have you ever been in a situation where you had to hide something very serious from everyone? This tormented you greatly, but you were afraid of censure and ridicule? I have, because I was being played a joke, but the joke got out of hand. Watch this video to the end and you will find out how I hid my pregnancy. Since I was a child, I lived with my father, because my mother had an accident when I was not even 2 years old. So it was hard for Dad, because now he was raising me alone. Because of work, he could leave for 9 to 12 months on business trips, and then spent the same time at home and studied the breeds that he brought from his travels. Until I was 13, my grandmother usually lived with me when my father was away. But when her health deteriorated, I started living alone. Dad trusted me, and I trusted him. And then a few weeks ago, he left again. Because I am too trusting, I have often been pranked by my friends, thinking that they are telling the truth, and in the end, the whole school laughed at me. Everyone used to joke about me and that I was going to get caught, and it made me mad. I wanted to change myself, and I thought I was even doing it, but something happened. One day, some of my classmates had a girls' night out to gossip and discuss guys, and they invited me. We changed into our pajamas and were chatting on the bed. Then one of the girls decided to tell us about her first. The conversation continued, and it turned out that everyone except me already had it, and I was the only one who was a virgin. Do you and your friends discuss such topics? I admitted that it was difficult for me to find the right guy, to do everything right, so that my first time was unforgettable. But the girls seemed to go crazy. They rushed to give advice and all in one voice said that the main thing was not to believe in various nonsense, such as that after the first time you could get pregnant if you did not protect yourself. They say this is nonsense, and they all confirmed that during the first time they did not use protection and no one got pregnant. They said it was a myth invented by adults for frivolous teenagers. And it sounded very convincing. But I didn't know at the time that this was another prank. I was even glad that my own thoughts were confirmed, because my dad often talked to me about these topics and an unintended pregnancy. But I always thought that he was exaggerating and the risks were minimal. And now I knew for sure. Woohoo! The girls encouraged me and advised me not to be afraid and just sleep with any guy I liked, without thinking about the consequences and how responsible he was. I was really inspired by this and very quickly found a guy like this. It was Josh from a parallel class. After a few days of communication, I invited him home, and he also turned out to be a virgin. To be honest, I didn't really know what to do, but I didn't admit it. And I don't think Josh knew either. It wasn't the way I wanted it to be, but now I was proud to be with the boy, and I wanted to tell all my friends about it as soon as possible. In order not to wait for another party, I arranged it at home and proudly told the girls about my first time and how their advice helped me, because we did not protect ourselves and everything turned out well. But they didn't seem happy for me, and they were confused because they didn't think I would follow their advice so quickly. But this only flattered me. Maybe they were jealous of me after all. A few weeks after that, I suddenly got sick in class, threw up in front of everyone, and the teacher sent me home. Stacy, who had been spending the night with me, caught up with me in the hallway and told me to do a pregnancy test, but I just laughed. Most likely, I just ate something wrong. But I was not going to fall for another prank. I was glad I wasn't falling for them now. But after 2 weeks, I started to panic. I was constantly sick, and especially in the morning. My sense of smell improved, and any sharp smell immediately made me ill. My mood was constantly bad for no reason, and I decided to buy a pregnancy test. It was positive, but that couldn't happen. I was sure that it was defective because after the first it was not possible to get pregnant. So I bought a second one. But it also showed 2 lines. I realized that my friends had simply deceived me because there were no other options. I was furious. I was angry at my friends, at myself, at my trusting and naive nature. I cried for a long time because I only had sex once in my life, and I was expecting a child, and I was only 15 years old. I felt terrible, and in addition to the sickness, I also began to feel depressed. But I decided that no one would know about my stupid act. Did you ever want to hide something you did? I went to the clinic with the hope that I would still have time to have an abortion. But the gynecologist said that it was already dangerous because then I might not have children at all, especially at such a young age. The doctor said that I needed to take care of myself and not be afraid. I could cope with the support of my relatives. But I couldn't answer, and I just started crying and ran out of the office. I realized with horror that I would have to cope with this problem alone because my dad was on a business trip and he would not be able to return for a very long time. I did not trust my friends anymore, and the guy with whom everything had happened did not come to me once after sex. But, unexpectedly for me, he asked for a visit. We were sitting in my room. It was awkward, but he started saying that after that time, he constantly thought about me. He wanted to repeat what we had done and asked me to become his girlfriend. He waited for an answer, but the sharp smell of his perfume made me sick and I ran to the bathroom. And when I was washing my face, I remembered that the ultrasound results were on the table. And he probably already saw everything. I quickly returned to the room, but he was already holding them in his hands. He handed the tests to me and apologized. He knew I was pregnant. I just asked him to keep quiet about it or we'd both be in trouble. He left and I was tormented by thoughts because I did not tell him whose child it was. I felt alone, but I knew there was nothing I could do. So I made a fake doctor's certificate so I wouldn't have to go to school. My stomach would soon be visible, and my friends would know what was wrong, and I didn't want to be a joke again. I was at home all the time, and I was bored. The phone rang, and I heard Stacy's voice. She asked to visit me, but I pretended I wasn't feeling well. And to be honest, I just didn't want to see anyone. I was about to put the phone down, but she suddenly admitted that pregnancy after the first sex was not a myth, and that I had just been played without thinking about the consequences, and now her conscience was tormented. I knew that a long time ago, but it hurt to hear it from someone. I broke down and told Stacy about the pregnancy. I told her how bad I felt now, how lonely and sad I was, but asked her not to tell my classmates about it because I was already considered a naive fool, and Stacy promised to keep my secret. After talking to my friend, I felt better. I got out of it and felt less alone. What I didn't know was that while I thought only I, Josh, and Stacy knew about the pregnancy, Josh started to worry that I couldn't handle it alone. I was alone at home, standing in the mirror and looking at my stomach as it changed and gradually grew. Suddenly there was a tap on the window and I saw the girls' faces. I quickly put on my sweater and hid behind the door, but they kept knocking and ringing the bell. I resigned myself to the fact that nothing could change and realized that there was no point in excusing myself, so I decided to let them in. I stood with my eyes closed and waited for the girls to mock me, because they had caught me in the act and were probably going to tell the whole school about it as usual. But my friends poured out a lot of brochures about pregnant women on the table, surrounded me, sat me down at the sofa and vied with each other to talk about what was useful during pregnancy. I didn't expect this at all. As it turned out, Josh thought I needed help from a therapist, so he broke down and told my ex-friends about my pregnancy and asked them to visit me. The girls did not come to mock me, but on the contrary, to support me because they felt guilty for my accidental pregnancy. They asked me not to be mad at them and apologized. They also advised not to believe everything they said. We drank tea and they supported me. For the first time during my pregnancy, I felt that I was not alone, and it felt good. Of course, there was still a conversation with my dad, but I already knew that I would be able to cope with everything. Josh supported me too and visited me every day. Once we were sitting in the living room, he squeezed my hand and kissed my stomach. Now I was sure I had support. Did you get in trouble for being naive? If so, share it in the comments. Also, don't forget about likes, subscriptions, and the bell icon to see new stories first. Don't believe everything people say. Have a nice day!